All right, welcome back. So I know Jim's going to give us some potential contracts of what he thinks a Lindor extension might look like. And Jim, in doing that, can you also tell us when you think this would happen? Because Rec brought it up earlier. Is this something you'd approach Lindor with now, right after making the trade, before the season starts, mid-season, after the season, when?
So I would try to do it before the season starts. A lot of players going into their final year, they don't want it to be a distraction during the course of the year. So I would say you approach it as soon as possible with his agent and then have discussion leading up to opening day. And then, from there, you kind of play off of the player. Some players are okay negotiating during the course of the season. Most of them are not. When we traded for Piazza back in '98, I was in the organization. They didn't want to talk about the contract. We got him in the middle of the season. We waited till the end, till the season was over, and they really had us in a bind there. So I would do it, before opening day. But in terms of what a contract might look like, there's some pretty interesting comparisons. It's going to be expensive. This is the best player in the sport, one of the best players in the sport. As a shortstop, since 2016, he's #1 in WAR. Mookie Betts, we just saw his contract sign. He did not become a free agent. That number is huge. Now, most people think he's #2, the best player in the sport behind Trout. So that's expensive. Machado is the guy that went out as a free agent. He's 26. Lindor obviously just turned 27. That's what Machado got as a free agent, 10 years, $300 million. So I'm not saying it's 365, but it's a lot closer to Machado than you think. And, he might be willing to take a little bit of a discount, but this is New York. This is, high profile. There's a lot of things here that would push him more towards the Manny Machado contract over 10 years.
That's interesting, Jim. And look, you're the former GM. You know this stuff better than me. Those numbers look a little bit bigger than I would have expected, and that's not because I don't think the world of Francisco Lindor. I certainly do. I thought at the time that Machado got overpaid. Mookie Betts, to me, is probably the best player in the game, if not top 3. So I think when you look at that, I definitely understand that number. And you're looking at basically 30 million AAVs for those guys. So in my head, I was thinking more along the $27 million for Francisco. But that's interesting. I mean, if he's able to get that 10 years, 300, that would be great for him. That would be really hard for the Mets to fit that in and do anything else over the next few years with some of the contracts that they have without letting a lot of guys go. But we'll see what happens. And I hope for his sake, I hope for Francisco Lindor's sake, that he does get that kind of money, because he's a fantastic player, and we'll see what happens with him in New York. I'd love to see him locked up here. He's a very, very good player.
Andy, I want to go to you here, because from listening to what you heard today from Jared Porter and Sandy Alderson, your reporting afterwards, do you still think that what you heard dictates that the Mets did this and signed and made this trade for Lindor knowing this might be only 1 year of team control? Or do you think deep down they know they have the pockets to sign him to a long-term extension?
I think this was a trade. In fact, I'm very confident this was a trade for 1 year of Francisco Lindor. That's what this deal was about. Now, that's not to say that they won't sign him. That's just a separate matter, as we're discussing here. And those numbers get really big, and there are a lot of other shortstops available next year. So we're just going to have to see how it all plays out. But Sandy Alderson and Jared Porter were clearly comfortable giving up what they gave up for a year of Lindor and 2 plus the option of Carrasco. That's what this deal was about. Contract stuff is separate.
Listen, I get it, and I'm not disputing that at all, but it would surprise me very much if the Mets did not extend Francisco Lindor, and that's not because of anything that I've heard from anybody in particular, but this to me feels exactly like the deal the Dodgers made for Mookie Betts. And when you're talking about a franchise like the Mets right now, where from day one, all we have heard from Steve Cohen is it's not about this upcoming year. It's about sustaining success year in, year out, have that 3 to 5 year window. When you trade that capital, which is not nothing, it's not what maybe I or anybody else expected it would take to get Lindor, but it's still not nothing. When you trade that capital for a player in his prime at a premium position who is, again, one of the top 5 to 10 players in the game, I think if you're the Mets, you're doing this saying, all right, we're doing it for this year, and we're comfortable, I guess, if it doesn't work out. But we want to lock this guy up for the long term. And I think that just gut, I think that will happen.